Guaranteed to have more mess than a Real Madrid locker room. Welcome back to Motorsport 101. And they're waving it off, race fans. They are waving it off.
I wish they would have waved that shit off. Welcome back to episode 654 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighbor host, Florentino Perez, and on this episode of Motorsport 101, we're going to discuss something almost as messy as Real Madrid's locker room. Well, apart from whenever Lino would have a play against their defense. It's the Indy Road Course race, the Sonsio Grand Prix, and oh boy. Let's just say there was a dark cloud overshadowing this race, and it wasn't the rain that hit on Saturday afternoon that got qualifying pushed back.
Friday afternoon, because remember, this is a Saturday race. This always F's us up every single time.
Yeah, it's like, I get why it's done on a Saturday. I know you got to prep the oval for the Indy 500 practice runs that are going on literally as we speak, as we record this episode. But it's like, this is why no one cares about this race under most circumstances. Those grandstands were virtually empty this weekend. I mean, geez, it is what it is in that sense. The good news is, props to Christian Lundgaard. He finally gets his Indy Road Course win. It's been a long time coming. He got his win. The downside is almost everything else. And we'll break that down over the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. Alongside me, as you have already heard, Rory James O'Connell, as ever, who spent most of last weekend having to explain what Asuni Miku was. And meanwhile, still in sports
so you went back and watched the rest of the race.
Of course I did. It's you. I'm going to make an effort when you get on commentary, because I give a shit about my co-hosts and I want to see them do well and succeed. Well, don't ask about the questionable legal means I took to watch the replay, but the point is I did it.
Look, maybe good news soon by the time in August, if anybody... Look, I heard nothing. Cam Buckley.
Cam Buckley, you're here as well.
Are you as furious right now as if you were an Indiana Pacers fan, was just like, damn, Tyrese Halliburton is hurt, but maybe we could get a top lottery pick in the NBA draft, and no, we don't get anything.
Well, it's a good thing that IndyCar rolled out Scott Foster and Tony Brothers to officiate this Grand Prix, to extend this series as long as they can, as a bunch of stinky bitches who can't officiate a race.
Yeah. The good news is
I'm not bothered at all.
The good news is Scott Elkins may have partially saved the day already. The bad news is we have to get through the PR disaster first. That was the back half of this race.
The problem is them admitting to the thing that they wouldn't admit to doing, and then saying we're going to stop doing the thing that we were not doing. Definitely trust us.
Okay.
Put the plaster back on. Give me 20
blood
minutes.
Everywhere.
Okay. So, podcast intro, motorsport101.com. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on all social media platforms. Let's just address the elephant in the room here with the Indianapolis Grand Prix.
Go on.
In the middle of the race, Alexander Rossi's car broke down just alongside the start-finish line at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right up against the pit wall. There was mass confusion because some teams heard it was a local yellow, which it was at first at the start-finish line, before eventually calling a full course yellow. But the confusion led to dangerous scenarios, including Kyle Kirkwood cutting across the grass to avoid the pit lane, Scott Dixon passing 4 cars into turn 1 with the local yellow out. And this is something that we're all aware that up to this point, if there is a situation with track hazard being a stop car on a road and street course specifically, and it comes during a window where most people are going to pit, they will withhold deploying a full course yellow. They'll go to local yellows only. And then once everybody has one chance to pass through pit lane and do their routine pit stops, then and only then will they throw the full course yellow. So this is not like a brand new phenomenon. This has been going on for years, but this was ultimately the last straw. So when Alexander Rossi got out of his car, he talked with Fox's Georgia Henneberry after the race. He said that the hybrid had done nothing to improve the racing, while not actually saying the hybrid. It was Ed Carpenter who threw shade at Honda for this. We'll get to that point in a second. And that the length of time to throw the caution for Rossi's car stranded while cars were passing him at speeds up to 170 miles per hour it's insane when they don't let us drive in the wet. Because remember, qualifying had been postponed due to standing water and the medical helicopter could not leave the circuit safely. That's why they ultimately pushed the qualifying back to Saturday morning, which I know some people, including IndyCar Twitter's most notorious bad actors, were all up in their feelings about, but whatever. So in addition to all that, Rossi, he's got a podcast, Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. He said on his podcast, quote, "I would have thrown my steering wheel to cause a debris flag, but we don't throw a yellow for that either. And there were instances where we had debris on the racing line that could have either been a full course yellow, right, twice during the race. And other times they're just like, let it ride." This was the final straw because yesterday, Tuesday, IndyCar put out a bulletin saying, effective immediately, IndyCar officiating, now independent of the series and Penske Entertainment, will no longer take into consideration pit windows and the running order of cars on track before deploying a full course yellow. So that's the big flashpoint of the race that we want to get into first, because I know we are all fired up about, and can I just say on behalf of everybody else, this was an overdue change.
Long overdue. I think we can roughly trace this back to 2017 when they first started doing this. The whole idea of, if something prompts a full course yellow, you let the leaders choose whether they want to pit or not, and then throw in the full course yellow. We've ranted and raved on this podcast for years. Combined, the 3 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us, whether it's been King, Krista Hardy, whoever else has covered IndyCar on this show. I've said for some time, and I do not exaggerate, this is the worst officiated rule in modern motorsport. And to be fair, even calling it a rule, technically speaking, is not true, because it is not in the official IndyCar rulebook, but it's always been the vibes-based call that the series has gone with in the modern era. This is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. Alex Rossi's car was stranded on the home straight, and again, it's bad enough that we didn't even get to see this clip until Monday, thanks to Hickey on Twitter, who is sharing these onboard clips that reveal how the sausage is made. And I saw Scott Dixon pass 4 cars on a local yellow with Rossi's dead car on the side. He gets to turn 1 first, and when he gets to the infield section, he screams on the radio, "Well, that was fucking dangerous." You don't say, Scott.
My brother in Christ, you made the sandwich.
That's right. This is Scott Ditson. Scott Ditson, who was at the infamous 2001 CART Texas race. That was his rookie year. Happy recent anniversary to that and the release of Driven. Let's never speak of it again until we inevitably do.
I mean, we have seen this happen before. We have called this out before, but never do I think we have seen such a blatant example of it. When it happens, we then see the leaders at this point being Palou and Kirkwood get differing information over the radio. Yeah. Palou stays out. Kirkwood panic pits as a result, and then they are unsure whether it's a full course yellow, decide not to take the potential penalty of entering a closed pit. He crosses the grass to get back onto the racing line.
Which, again, is also inherently dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Dude, especially because of the way the pit entry works in Indianapolis on the road course. Like, you are rejoining directly back onto the racing line.
Yeah, and I reiterate the stance that this is not a good rule. This is not a good way to officiate things. But
it's not a rule.
I was apoplectic that Palou and Kirkwood's teams knew what the vibes have been for the last 10 years and didn't bring their guys into pit lane. Unless they were already past the pit entry point, And in Kirkwood's case, we know the circumstances there. Why?
I'm shocked.
Of a win.
I'm sure Barry Wands is the best strategist in IndyCar, and he completely screwed the pooch on this one.
But remember the quote from Bob Costas, even Superman apparently gets tired. He said that about Michael Jordan in Game 6 of the 1998 NBA Finals, by the way.
Apparently it was a split on whether they knew it was a full course yellow or not.
And that's the reason why, because apparently Kirkwood found out, or the Kirkwood's team found out, because they'd heard the term full course yellow said on the broadcast, because the broadcast booth themselves were confused as to whether it was a full course yellow or not, because the local yellow zone was the literal start-finish line where you would also throw the yellow if it was a full course yellow. So, of course, naturally, there was confusion because the Marshall post was the start-finish line. A complete
shout out to my dude, Aaron Likens.
And they just sat there with a dead car on the main straight. So we had a 4-wide, people lifting, some people not pass in said local yellow zone.
Someone could have died.
What about this is acceptable? If you're going to manipulate the race to this degree, just bring in playoffs. Just admit that you're NASCAR and just fucking do it already.
It's
ridiculous.
It's so
I joked about this being soft. I joked about this being soft race manipulation, but Cam, in the discussions that we had about Glenn Ghazi, what on earth makes you think that IndyCar has the capacity to manipulate this all as according to plan?
This is, I feel like, and I've had to have this discussion with a few members of our Discord server, people who might be newer to IndyCar racing.
Right.
Y'all are learning how the sausage is made. American open wheel racing has been a train wreck for 32 years. And before that, we had this whole thing where USAC was so bad at officiating races that Dan Gurney, and I'm going to quote Ryan Eric King here, nailed that white paper to USAC's door like Martin Luther with the 95 Theses.
That was the white paper that led to the creation of CART in 1979. Another infamous USAC moment, 1997 finish to the Indianapolis 500. Ari Lyondike saying, that's green, that's yellow. What the F are we doing, when they can't figure out if they're going to have a one-lap shootout to the finish or not? And that's what ultimately gets USAC pulled from doing the officiating for these early Indy League Racing League races. And the IRL just takes it all in-house themselves.
Yeah, because they pivot back to USAC, and USAC hadn't changed. USAC was the same Dunning-Kruger temple that it always was. And I mean, time is a flat circle, and we're right back to it with IndyCar now, where they had to take officiating out of the house last year thanks to Glenn Ghazi and Penske cheating not to make the cars faster, but to make them look better.
It's
so fucking this is a series that punches up at Formula One.
And that's the funniest thing about it, right? Because I've never been a fan of, and like I've been watching IndyCar. And like I'm the least experienced IndyCar fan out of the three of us on this show. I've been watching since roughly 2015, so this is roughly 10 years of me watching, and I get why it happens. I've said for some time that IndyCar has this big inferiority complex. It likes being the little brother that punches up like Scrappy Doo at F1, saying, look how bad their hybrids are, look at how dominant their racing are, look at Lewis Hamilton and he having to worry about 3 cars a weekend, and all of that. And
fuck do you punch up at F1 at the hybrid system, while the hybrid system here is a 9-volt battery?
And that's the thing. It punches up at Formula One, but it copies every page out of its book on the way to what this is. It copies all the worst traits of Formula One and inherits it into its own series. The hybrids, which I completely agree with Alex Rossi, have added nothing to the state of IndyCar since its inception nearly 2 years ago now. It's brought nothing to improve IndyCar as a series going in. In fact, I love the RJ's point he made last week when he said, this was probably more Honda holding the series to ransom over staying alive or the potential severe consequences of Honda potentially leaving at the end of this year. And what would happen to IndyCar next if you're down to one supplier of engines?
Yeah.
You know, a truly spec series at that point. You know, you've brought over the hybrids, you've brought over the shitty officiating that has stained Formula One for the last half decade plus.
Oh no, I'm not going to give them that credit. This officiating has been shit all the way back. This is the series that thought 34 cars on a progressively banked oval was a good idea in 2011, and we lost Dan Weldon because of it. And I still haven't forgiven IndyCar for that, and I never will.
And the thing is, right, and I'm going to take the tangent a little bit because, you know, there's only so many ways you can call Alex Rossi's situation a complete shit show.
Yep.
It was a horrible week for IndyCar across the board.
Do you want to get into the lightning round of mess? Let's get into the lightning round of mess. I think we should. It's only fair that we start with the update on two pass, two push, aka P2P Ghazi Part 2 at Long Beach, because we got all the names of the people that were on it, and we also got a zesty press conference.
It got heated between Kyle Kirkwood, Alex Palou, and Paolo O'Ward, all discussing the list of names and the people that were on it and the people that have pushed the button, which is something the fans have been demanding after the initial press release about this on the Monday after Long Beach. Alex Palou was included in one of the names on that list. He used it 3 times for 15 seconds in total. And Palou basically said, yeah, I'd do it again because we know it's a system that people can exploit. And he laughed it off because he's right.
And you know what? Well, and the details that have come out about this, that everyone does press the button knowingly. Like what we heard about with Penske last year, and that was a on-car software thing. So this is a entirely different mechanism that gets you to the same endpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a couple times a year, IndyCar does a fucky-wucky and leaves the system on after a restart. And if you're pressing the button and you get that golden goose, you get extra horsepower to protect yourself on a restart.
Yeah, that's right. And the series can't punish you for it because ultimately they're responsible for the failure, not the car and driver. It's not the car and team's responsibility to not press the button. It's up to you as a racing series to make sure the system is airtight. And it's not, and it has not been for years. We pointed it out when we talked about it on our Long Beach episode. It was a fucking failure. And to make matters worse, IndyCar decided to change the rule that now for any restart apart from lap 1, you are now allowed to use the push to pass button immediately. While, yes, that somewhat resolves the problem, there's no getting around it. Essentially, you've made the rule. It's an admittance that you cannot police the rule properly.
RJ, you remember the Spa 24 Hours a couple of years ago when they realized that
in 2020, the COVID, they didn't have the people to enforce track limits in race control, so they just decided, you know what, especially for qualifying, if it's paved, it is all free real estate, which is tremendous banter, by the way, but also not how a top-of-the-line racing series should be run. And to the point about full course yellows, this is like, because I hate to make this about me for a second, but when Super GT brought in a rule that says anytime they full throw a safety car, pit lane is closed, I did not like the rule. I thought it unfairly tipped races over on their head. Other drivers agreed. I thought it was nonsense. Now, they've loosened up since. There are windows you can come into the pits for full service, under safety car, once everybody's gathered up and all that. I hated it. And then I was on the beat for SRO America, where they also have a similar policy towards stop cars off course and the timing of safety cars, because they don't really use full course yellow, even though it's in the books. They will just go straight to safety car. There was a car, there's a VIR, there was a car with a paraplegic driver who obviously cannot walk out of the car in case his car is stranded. His car was stranded at the top of the S's at VIR, and they waited for at least 60 to 90 seconds to throw the safety car while this car was stranding out here with a driver who cannot walk away from his car under his own power. And that's when it all clicks. It's just like, golly, why do we do this? I'm sorry for the tangent.
No, I think that's excellent exposition.
No, it makes perfect sense. This was stupid. This was incredibly stupid. And basically, the rule change is basically an admittance from IndyCar that they cannot police this rule properly because they cannot guarantee the security of their push-to-pass system on their cars. That's pathetic. It's Bush League.
Just the same, Dre, as them admitting that they were taking into account the effect of the race on throwing full course yellows over the safety of the drivers on track.
This is what IndyCar officiating thinks of its drivers. They're expendable for entertainment's sake.
We knew this was the case, and they still went out and admitted it. Is crazy, dog. You had to. We have because you're backed into a corner.
We have mostly spec cars and spec ECUs and a choice of 2 engines, and then the suspension is free game.
Uh-huh.
How the fuck can you not police this?
I don't know. We can go in the many issues about why between the domestic and international broadcasts or the broadcast graphics so screwy sometimes. I mean, like part 2 of the lightning round.
This feels like a shitty short track racing league that's on a streaming service you've never heard of. Not IndyCar.
This is a nationally televised racing series.
Internationally televised
racing series that gets about 1.5 million viewers per race at home. They've had a great season ratings-wise. This is the best they've had since reunification so far. There's over 1 million people watching each race, and you can't get a basic broadcast right to the point where we had no GPS and no timing tower in round 1 of qualifying on Saturday morning, and Will Buxton is laughing at it in the middle of a commentary box and having to manually tell us the times by hand. What are we doing?
Your own commentary is laughing at your organizational failures.
Yeah.
They had to use stopwatches, Cam.
Hey, it's like it's just like Days of Thunder. It's so realistic.
Just like the good old days. We really are bringing it back to the USAC glory days. This is Tony George's vision. Do we wish to continue the lightning round of mess?
Please,
yes.
Please, just ratatouille me. I relinquish control, RJ.
All right. So we also got news that there's going to be another change for 2027. Because we talked about no more wild cards in MotoGP in 2027, similar situation here. In any event besides the Indianapolis 500, unless you're a team that has a charter for 1, 2, 3 cars, you cannot add an extra car to the field. That means a non-chartered team cannot enter a single car in any race except the Indianapolis 500. And I just have to wonder if the recent announcement of Dreyer and Reinbold Racing partnering with Juncos Hollinger, or if HMD effectively running Catherine's Legs car, which is under the AJ Foyt banner, I wonder if these are not intentional moves from entities that realize this is probably their only way they're going to get on the grid now.
I called it the Prema rule, and it just goes to show you that Prema was fucked from the start. And don't get me wrong, I'm in no way endorsing Deborah Meyer's very weird investment decisions, because anybody could have told you the way that IndyCar was going with this, that investing $50 million into a team was a terrible idea, and you were not getting a return on that investment whatsoever. Slamming the door to outsiders wanting to get on the grid, ironically, is a peak F1 move.
But it's exactly the same. It is the same move down to a T. Only this is even more hard coded into it because a lot of tracks can only accommodate 27 cars.
Right.
But IndyCar drew a line in the sand when they initially announced the charters that unless you're already in the house, you are not welcome here.
It was the free 22, 25, 27 system, 3 charters per team, 22 cars for the leaders circle, 25 charters in total, 27 was the maximum grid size. Hence why, credit to Marshall Pruitt, he was one that came up with that term. It's the easiest way I can remember it.
Yeah.
And they've now gone one further to basically say no part-time entrants in any race besides the 500 now, which is just objectively stupid.
We'll only get up to 27 when we get the house cars online, the charter cars for Chevrolet, which we don't know who that's going to, and the charter car for Honda, which we 110% know that's going to Meyer Shank Racing. Meyer Shank Racing, who, by the way, can owe it having a charter to being a part-time team in IndyCar first, because remember, and Mike Shank had told me this, before they ever got involved in IndyCar, sports car racing was their backbone.
Yeah, and in the meantime, they are running the Acura car as part of the Acura expansion into IndyCar, which will involve the death of the ARX-06 program come the end of this year, which is really awesome. And now I need to make it a point to go to a race this year because I want to see that car live. And the clock is now running out. Speaking of Meyer Shank Racing,
guys, Dre, how the fuck did Morgan Wallen, country music singer, get mainstream enough for his own SiriusXM channel and subsequently a 2-off livery to promote said SiriusXM channel themed around him? I don't get his appeal.
And I never got his appeal either. And look, this is such a shame in multiple ways because I generally like the Meyer Shank team and their serious punch-up has actually generally been excellent. They've had some fantastic liveries and promotions and activations off the back of this deal. The Metallica car, the Creed car, the
Ozzy Osbourne car, dog.
The Ozzy Osbourne
Black
car.
Sabbath car. Rest in peace, Ozzy.
Black Sabbath car. The Green Day car we got just one round ago at Long Beach was great. And
how do you pivot from Green Day to Morgan Wallen in 1 week?
For those who don't know, and this is the reason why this is a little bit more serious now, Morgan Wallen was caught on TMZ on video using the N-word as a slur back in 2021. He's now being promoted on the side of Meyer Shank's car. So once again, a racist is being promoted on the side of an Indy car. And this was also the same week that the series itself tried to sneak in a launch of merchandise for the Freedom 250. Sneaky
in the same way that Thor crashing a hammer down on a giant's head is sneaky. No, they plastered this shit.
You know the pipe dropping noise where it's just like clang, 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 clang.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like the
One Nation, One Race was the phrase and slogan on that t-shirt. The picture itself was an IndyCar driver replicating Abraham Lincoln's sitting down pose. It was AI slop with a third leg poking out of it. Thankfully, not that kind of third leg. and
just the perfect shirt to wear while you listen to Morgan Wallen. I'm gonna go throw up. Thanks.
Can I be mildly serious for just 1 second here? I need 90 seconds just to quickly say something very important here. IndyCar's vetting has been fucking atrocious for the last year and change. From ICE using the series as a way of promoting, trying to put brown and black people in prison and shipping them off to God knows where, as America basically tries to reenact the Civil War with its private police, which basically borderlines to Gestapo at this point, while Roger Penske, who we all know is a huge Republican shill, effectively having to beg and plead Donald Trump to bring the series over to Washington for a race to, quote, celebrate, in inverted commas, this Freedom 250 that we're going to get to turn IndyCar season finale into a 5 race in 5 week quintuple header to close it out. The fact that we're now promoting racist merchandise to promote this race, the fact you've buddied up with Fox and they've had Barstool members, Dave Portnoy, who owns Barstool, is a huge racist. I cannot stress this enough. I am getting deeply uncomfortable watching and talking about IndyCar. I shouldn't have to feel this way. I love this series. I want to enjoy this series. I do not want to feel uncomfortable watching a race series that has no discretion, no vetting, and does not care if it uses racists to promote itself. If this continues, I am not going to host podcasts about IndyCar anymore because I don't want to endorse racism. This keeps happening. And it makes me angry having to sit down and discuss this because this is not one of those shades of grey type scenarios. This is happening time and time and time again. And the series is doing nothing about it. It's twerking into it. It's moonwalking.
They're leaning into it. Who did they tie up with? Oh, yeah, Fox. Does anyone really need a reminder on what Fox is responsible for over here in the States?
Mark my words, if this continues, this will be the last season we cover IndyCar on Motorsport 101. I am dead serious. I know there's a lot of people out there that listen to this show from the UK that genuinely enjoy the fact that a British podcast is covering this series. I'm proud that I'm able to do this, but I cannot continue to turn a blind eye and tolerate this bullshit. It's not fair on me, and it's not fair for the black IndyCar fans. I know there are many of them out there that want to enjoy this series, but are doing so in spite of the fact the series is moonwalking into racist behavior. It's bullshit, and it has to stop. Seriously. It's pathetic.
Any publicity is good publicity. And
it's working. That's the worst part. It's working. They're having their TV ratings are 40% up this year.
Except this weekend.
It's the first race they've been down.
Dre, you see who won the last presidential election? Of course it's fucking working.
And that's the point. I don't want to turn my back on this series, but I'm not being left with much choice, Cam. That's my problem. And the people that love this series deep down know it, and I need more of them to speak out about this bullshit. I can't stress this enough. It shouldn't have to come down to the black fans to keep pointing this out. It's the exact same shit I said about Formula One in 2020 when I said we don't race as one. That's the point. I need the white fans. I need the women. I need the people of color to speak up about this. It's bollocks. It shouldn't have to come down to me. It shouldn't have to come down to people of my skin color to point this out. That's what I wanted to say on the matter, because this keeps coming up and it's not a coincidence anymore. It's bollocks, man.
On top of all this, you know what the crazy part about all this is that outside of the mess of that Rossi incident, was this one of the top two races of the IndyCar season? Apart from that, it was generally a pretty all right to pretty good race. That big boo-boo aside, Alex Palou did beat the field's ass on Saturday morning after rain pushed the qualifying back. He lapped half a second faster than the field. We mentioned that Palou didn't pit. Kirkwood didn't pit during the full course yellow when they knew it was going to come because of all the miscommunication that left the battle for the win between David Malukas of Penske and Christian Lundgaard of Aero McLaren. And on the final round of pit stops, Lundgaard and McLaren went for the undercut. They actually gave him a good pit stop. He came out behind, but he took advantage of his tires already being up to temperature to pass David Malukas around the outside of turn 4 in what turned out to be a race-winning overtake, and I dare say a Golden Melon nominee. Lundgaard became the first McLaren IndyCar driver since their comeback to win, not named Pato O'Ward, his first in 48 races when he won in Toronto with RLL, ahead of Malukas in second. Graham Rahal on the podium again at the Indy Road Course ahead of Joseph Newgarden, who did not forget how to make right turns, and Alex Palou, such a terrible thing that happened to him, he rounds out the top 5. Anyway, can I extend the metaphor for the whole thing about how nobody other than Pato O'Ward's won for McLaren so far? So Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport is what this team began as, and they had the 77 car for Simon Pagenaud, and he won all of Schmidt-Peterson's races while he was there. Then they clean house. Pagenaud goes to Penske. They bring in James Hinchcliffe to drive the renumbered number 5 while they give another car to number 77. Anyway, that's the old Pagenaud car, and James Hinchcliffe gets all of Schmidt-Peterson's wins in the number 5 car. We will never forget the 3/4 of a season that Robert Wickens had. It could have been something else.
He was so good that season.
Yeah. And now, obviously, Pato O'Ward won all the races from McLaren up to that point. And now Christian Lundgaard has won in the 7 car this weekend with a very ballsy pass. A pass that, Dre, you'll appreciate this. It gives him leverage because he's a free agent at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really in the mood to make a bunch of Christian Lundgaard related jokes here as a humble brag for the amount of gas I've blown up his arse over the last 2 or 3 years in IndyCar. This was a brilliant Lundgaard performance. That was, it was subtly brilliant in that he never really looked like he was in control of this race until the final round of pit stops. It was a couple of seconds off Malukas. He brought it to within a second. He hit for the undercut. While it initially didn't quite work, the extra advantage you get from running the undercut, which a lot of people don't talk about, is the fact that you get warm tires when your opponent comes out of the pits. That is probably worth a second in its own right. And that was what gave Lundgaard the extra speed, the momentum, and I'd probably argue the confidence to go round the outside of David Malukas at turn 4 before the chicane, slam the door in his face, get in front and win. Lundgaard has been owed one of these for a little while. I haven't forgotten the water bottle that Alex Rossi got dinged 20 points for when he won his last IndyCar race at this very track. And he wasn't DQ'd because American motorsport just doesn't work that way. He got slapped with a points deduction instead when Lundgaard was second that day. This was also the race where Lundgaard made his IndyCar debut a few years ago, straight out of the Alpine Academy, straight out of ART when he was in Formula 2, and he was competitive immediately. He's been due one round here for a little while now, and I'm very glad he got his moment because he's a top 3 road and street course driver in IndyCar now. Like, how many road and street drivers are better than Christian Lundgaard at this point? Palou?
Oh, there's a guy in a red and yellow car.
And that might be it. Maybe Kyle Kirkwood on street tracks. That's about it for me at this point. Lundgaard is incredible on road and street tracks. And that is a pillar that could get him an Astor Cup one day. In the right environment, in the right team. The ovals need a little bit of work still, but as you mentioned, I genuinely think that Christian Lundgaard is going into this offseason as the number 1 free agent on the board.
Leverage, because like they have 2 drivers out of contract, him and Nolan Siegel. They are already reportedly in talks to bring in Leo Fornaroli into one of those seats. He's shown at least an interest, but that's only one Leo Fornaroli to fill 2 potential seats. And I don't think McLaren would be moving on from Christian Lundgaard for performance reasons. I think Lundgaard would move on from McLaren before McLaren moves on from him if he keeps this performance up.
I still think Penske could be worth making a phone call to put him in the number 2 car next year. I don't get me wrong, Newgarden's probably bought himself a bit of time with that 4th place. It was a very, very good performance this weekend from Joseph. He started 10th, drove the nuts off that Penske, got it into contention. That was the maximum that was on the table for Joseph in that race. Really strong drive. He needed one of those on a road and street track, and I'm glad he got it.
Finally has stability.
But has he left it too late now? Because he's still not where he should be in a championship battle right now. He's Joseph Newgarden. He's won everything you can win in IndyCar multiple times over. You should expect him probably where David Malukas is in this championship right now, which is P3 and in contention. David
Malukas, man. I know there's trepidation. I know he had not won a race before he got the seat. I know he technically hadn't proven himself the way that Will Power had through all of his time at Team Penske. I get all that. But David Malukas is going to be just fine in this setup, I feel like. There's a debate of whether or not Malukas could have been more of a jerk and left a little less room for Christian Lundgaard. Dre called it. I think he left just enough room to make this something that Lundgaard really had to commit to. Fair play to Lundgaard. He really committed to it around the outside of turn 4.
I'm very glad that there is a very mature head on David Malukas' shoulders, because you might have guessed otherwise, given, let's be frank, out of the car, he's a bit of a shit poster. But
right
on the racetrack, he is mature beyond his years, and I would much rather see drivers concede 1% too much than take 1% too many liberties. And I know Cam will back me up on this one, because we both watched WEC 6 hours of Spa, and we saw multiple incidents where drivers were taking that 1% extra liberty, and the carnage
higher than 1% a couple times. There's a couple Golden Cock nominees wheel to wheel that came out of that race.
There are some guys
simply
that have
dooring someone going down the Kemmel is certainly a decision.
There are some people that I think highly of as drivers. I don't know about people that have been doing this for far too long to do dumb stuff like this.
I would much rather... You know what Malukas did there? It was old school. It was the idea of racing someone firm, but racing someone fair. He gave Lundgaard a car whip's room and maybe a cigarette paper. Lundgaard, as you said, had to fully commit to that move if he wanted to have any chance of pulling it off. There was no contact. It was clean. It was as great a legal defense as Malukas could put down. Yeah. And it was only beaten by spectacular offense. For me, that's what racing should be. It should not be a game of how much liberty can I take, how much can I run. Because you know what? Let's be frank. Modern day motorsport now is a lot of running people off the road, breaching track limits, cutting corners, and basically nasty bullshit. And I don't like it.
But IndyCar had a problem with this for a little bit of time.
Yeah, IndyCar's had this problem, Formula One's had this problem, MotoGP's had this problem in some instances, and the WEC still has this problem now in sports cars. I don't like it. I don't like this modern day trend.
Massive come to Jesus moment over the summer where you remember the race at Road America. That was their come to Jesus moment, because they finally realized, you are getting away with way too much nonsense. We need to clamp down. And what I've seen over the course of this, again, digression number 2, is that they've not been calling things as tight, but it's still not what it was leading up to the nonsense at Road America last August. But yeah, to Dre's greater point, a lot of people are taking a lot of liberties with other drivers. And in this instance, Malukas and Lundgaard raced each other firm, but fair. And we got a very good, very entertaining finish out of all that. It's a shame how we got here, but, ultimately, like the end product was good enough to where it's just like, it was good, but I don't know, man.
It sucks that this was arguably the second best race IndyCar has had this year behind Phoenix, because the ovals typically tend to do a bit better anyway. It was the best road and street course race that IndyCar's had this year, and it was marred with a fucking horrific full course yellow in the middle of it. Or
not full course yellow. Or a full course yellow was too late.
Eventually. Depending on how you want to describe it. Like I said, flowers to Christian Lundgaard, who's been outstanding in McLaren's colours for over a year now. This was a long time coming. I'm glad he's got his in McLaren colours. Like I said, I think he's the best free agent on the board this year. People should be lining up to pay that man money, quite frankly. Malukas is Look, it was RJ himself that said that Malukas was maybe the one dude on the road to Indy who gave Kyle Kirkwood something to think about
Which
out
was
there. And he's doing it again here because second in the points is Kyle Kirkwood. Third in the points is David Malukas. And
damn, that's crazy.
He is everything that he's everything that we thought he could be when he was on the road to Indy prospect. And the only reason that it's not those two competing for a championship directly right now is because of Alex Palou, who we all know is a demigod.
Yes, Alex Palou got robbed. Absolutely fucked on strategy, and still leaves here with a grown championship lead because the death and the taxes pale in comparison to the inevitability of Andretti fucking up a pit stop.
Kirkwood had him beaten. He really did, because Kirkwood, when the second big caution wreck happened with Felix Rosenqvist and Kiffin Simpson hitting each other on the back section of the track, Kirkwood was very sneaky and took a tighter line through the grass to get back in front, and he overtook Palou that way, given they were the early leaders. Kirkwood was on a much more aggressive strategy on sticker reds and dumping a boat of his push to pass. It was working until another botched Andretti pit stop on the front right. How many times do we have to have this conversation? Seriously.
We're going to keep having it because until Andretti gets their pit stops addressed, they're just not a title threat. There's not.
And it's such a shame because Kirkwood has driven his nuts off this season. He is everything Ryan Eric King said about Kyle Kirkwood in the special we made about him turned out to be true. He is a stud. He is so goddamn good. He's finished top 5 every single round this season except this one, and it was purely off of Andretti's strategy. Or I should say an Andretti pit stop botch.
He's a bit like Nikola Jokic if Nikola Jokic had serious draft pedigree coming into the league. Because you think about it, right? Nikola Jokic is doing pretty much everything for his Denver Nuggets. And often his Denver Nuggets are not giving him enough in return to go further than he did that one time where they somehow won it all.
Well, no, and instead of the 23.9 seconds of perfect defense and then Jokic backflipping a shot across the court, Palou keeps grabbing it out of the sky. Because Palou's pace in clean air, despite effectively having to do an extra pit stop, Palou in clean air was gross this weekend.
They did it again. They gave him clean air.
He had a 4.5 second lead in the first stint of the race after that initial 5-car wreck that brought out an early caution.
He dodged by about an inch on Pado's front wing. That damn Spaniard.
And then, despite the extra pit stop and having to fall to 19th because he had to come in during the actual full course yellow as opposed to beforehand, due to the confusion, he still finished 5th and was only 14 seconds off the win, despite essentially an extra pit stop.
So good.
Make no mistake, there was one driver in a class of his own this weekend, and fuck IndyCar race control.
I can't disagree. All I will say is, as RJ pointed out on our Discord server, this is why you bring in someone like Scott Elkins who actually knows what he's doing.
Ideally, you would like to have made the change before this nonsense happened, but the second best time to do it was now. You just wish you didn't get backed in the corner and thoroughly embarrassed in front of a national and in some cases international audience to make this change happen. But I feel
Very
like
useful.
I'm in a slightly better place.
Very useful article dropped during the recording of this from Marshall Pruitt. So, this, a quote, IndyCar officiating board, we need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I'm going to read off a section of it here. Wanzer and Herta did not see a full course yellow prompt on timing and scoring, nor did the yellow light on their timing stands activate. But those are no longer automatically trusted to be accurate indicators due to the on-again, off-again state of IndyCar's timing and scoring system. Quote, the pit light indicators, the timing and scoring, all it indicated was not full course yellow, and this isn't an excuse, but it is a reality. Timing and scoring has been very intermittently useful this year, Herta said. Is that good?
That's Brian Herta, who is now Kyle Kirkwood's strategist on the 27 car for Andretti Global, who's done
I've scrolled down.
Good job.
This is from Wanzer. All of us on the 10 all of us on the 10 car stand thought it was a full course yellow because we were looking down the straight leading to start finish and we see the yellow panel lit up on the wall, he said. We see the starter waving a yellow flag and Rossi stopped on the front stretch. It's like, well, it has to be a full course yellow because you wouldn't leave a car there on the front straight in the high speed section exposed. Well, they did.
This ends with, a perfect thing that sums up my feelings. I'm guessing everybody here. The change in the full course yellows policy is a perfect start, but it can't be the last improvement to come from a bad weekend for the referees. And this was a bad weekend for the referees to cap off a messy weekend. Gentlemen, do we have it in us to preview the Indianapolis 500 next week?
I'm going to be real with you for a minute. This is typically this is the event that kicks off the month of May. This is supposed to be a celebration as we go into the biggest motorsport event in the world, a leg of the Triple Crown of motorsport. The Indy 500 is all that matters. The split proved that the Indy 500 is all that matters in the face of every terrible decision that a racing series, or two racing series for quite a while, can make. And I go into practice with my man looking very, very fast, despite the issue with the engine on day one. And I just have a really bad taste in my mouth.
I want to enjoy this as quite rightly the biggest race weekend in the world next weekend when the Indy 500 takes place. I've moderated 4 day of classics on various platforms on Motorsport 101. I've Discord moderated half a dozen more. They are some of our most memorable, wonderful moments on this server. I watched Alex Palou win a 500 and our beloved Ed Hamilton was in tears. I watched Simon Pagenaud win an Indy 500 and Cam was a bloody mess. I was
the best both times for what it's worth.
I cried when James Hinchcliffe qualified on pole position, and I cried again when he got bumped because I couldn't believe the pain of what it was going through. Seeing Graham Rahal get bumped was an incredibly emotional and hard to watch moment that kind of made me softer on the man because you could clearly see how much it devastated him. And not even I'm going to punch down that low, to be honest. This is a magical 2 weeks. This is meant to be two of the best weeks in the motorsport calendar. I'm not excited for this year's 500. And I've had a lot of that enjoyment beaten out of me because I just feel like this series doesn't care about people like me right now. From an international fan on the broadcast to the, unfortunately, racially insensitive vetting that the series is going through and the leaning into that they are basically going to turn up to 11 over the next fortnight because we all know how well it did last year. 7 million people watched this race in America last year. It got more than the Daytona 500. And they will throw the house at this again because it was brilliant last year. They objectively are winning right now. And that's always what these sorts of people only care about. And that's winning. I wish I could win and enjoy this series at the same time. But the series is not letting me do that right now. And that upsets me. And it shouldn't have to come down to people like me to tell you this. I should be sitting here saying, I can't wait to do our 500 preview next week. Now it just feels like another episode. And that's a shame. And I hope, sincerely, I really do. I hope this series realizes the path it's going down and corrects course. This week was proof that it can do that to a degree. But I suspect the rule book is the easy part. The culture is the difficult bit. We'll see. I'm Andre Harrison. They've been Cam Buckley and RJ O'Connell. We'll be back next week.